1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 1 2 2 1 2 3 4.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Shri Zahir, Dean of the Carlson School of Management here at the University of Minnesota. Welcome to November's first Tuesday. And on this election day, this is a very special group. I just hope the turnout at the elections is as good as the turnout out here. Anyway, anyhow, as another year starts and starts to come to an end, thank you all for being here. First Tuesday continues to be one of the largest running business gatherings in Minnesota. And in addition to all of you, what helps make the First Tuesday so special is, of course, the ongoing support we receive every month from our partners. So as always, a very big thank you to Wells Fargo. We're always in the first table for being our presenting sponsor. And thank you to our supporting partner, D'Amico Catering, whose delicious food you're all eating. And thanks to Twin Cities Business, the event's longtime promotional partner and media sponsor, and the McNamara Alumni Center for giving us this wonderful space. We have a new sponsor. We've had one for the last 2 rounds, and that's Carlson Executive Education, which offers business leaders short transformational career development courses that blend university experiences with Fortune 500 experience. So would you please join me in giving a round of applause to all of our sponsors? At this time, I'd also like to welcome all of our distinguished guests who are with us today. President Eric Kaler of the University of Minnesota. Provost Karen Hansen. Is Provost Hansen there? There you are. And Regents Richard Beeson, Linda Cohen, Peggy Lucas, and Abdul Omari. I hope I haven't missed anybody. Thank you. Lastly, this is the month for giving thanks. And I want to make sure I say thank you to each and every one of you who have supported the Carlson School or the University of Minnesota. The support that we've received from you over the years helps us be one of the very best business schools in the world. So thank you. And now I'd like to turn to today's program. Today's guest speaker is, as you know, Best Buy Chairman and CEO Hubert Joly. Hubert joined the company in September 2012, and he has led an amazing transformation. And I hope we'll get to hear more about that later today. The performance throughout the company has greatly improved. The number of stores has grown to some 1,500 nationally and internationally, and annual revenues are at more than $42 billion. The employees of Best Buy and the Twin Cities community are truly fortunate to have Hubert at the helm of this local Fortune 500 gem. Before joining Best Buy, Hubert was CEO of Carlson, the global hospitality and Carlson travel company that we in this school know so well. And prior to that, he led Carlson Wagonlit Travel, Vivendi Universal Games, and EDS's business in France, and also spent some time at that famous consulting firm we've all heard of, McKinsey. So today, Hubert serves on the boards of the Ralph Lauren Company, the Retail Industry Leaders Association, and the Minnesota Business Partnership. He's a business administration grad from the École des Études Commerciales de Paris, HEC Paris, and a public administration graduate of the Institut d'Études Politiques de Paris. Please pardon my French. Furthermore, he's also a chevalier in the French National Order, locally chevalier being a knight. And locally, he has been named Twin Cities Business Journal 2018 Person of the Year. So without any further ado, let's give a hearty welcome to today's very special First Tuesday speaker, Hubert Joly. And I also want to...
Renew blue.
New blue, the new blue.
That's right.
And today we're going to just have a fireside chat format, and we'll open it up to questions towards the end of our conversation. So thank you. Okay, Hubert, let's get started with this, right? So, I know one thing you've said very publicly is that the purpose of a corporation is not to make money. Now, I lead a business school. Yeah. So what exactly do you tell your shareholders about that?
Before I answer this, I would like to recognize in the room, I think we have 3 tables from Best Buy executives and managers. And when you say I led the transformation of Best Buy, you and I know that it's the folks in the room, as well as 125,000 others who did this. I'd like to ask that they stand up and that we recognize them. So yes, the purpose of a company is not to make money. Of course, you have to make money, otherwise you cannot be in business, but there's a big difference between a necessity or an imperative and the purpose. And people get confused. I think back in the 80s and 90s, the sole focus of companies was on creating shareholder value. That's what you learn at business schools. I think many of us know, and I think Sri and Axe and others know that today it's a much more holistic view. The purpose of the company is to serve, to provide service and contribute to the common good, looking at all of the stakeholders that a company impacts. And that starts, of course, with the customers. So, for example, at Best Buy, we're not in the business of selling TVs or computers. We're in the business of enriching lives through technology by addressing key human needs. That's our purpose with customers. So it's also the employees. A company, at the end of the day, is a human organization in which individuals work and collaborate in pursuit of a goal, and the development and the fulfillment of the employees is a key element of the purpose of the company. At the end of the day, we have buildings, we have systems, but it's all about people. Everything crumbles down if you don't have the people. Then it's the vendors. At Best Buy, of course, we got to partner with the world's foremost tech companies in support of our transformation, and it's by collaborating with them and jointly winning that we've been able to do the turnaround. The shareholders are, of course, very important. That's the fourth stakeholder. But even there, that should, serving the shareholders should not be at the expense of the well-being of the company. It was interesting, earlier this year, all of the CEOs of public companies got a letter from Larry Fink. Larry Fink is the CEO of BlackRock, which is, I think, the largest investment fund in the world. And Larry was asking us, what's your purpose? What is your long-term strategy? What's your contribution to society? So even, if BlackRock tells you that, that says something. And then the fifth one is the communities in which we operate, how we do business. So we're very proud, of course, here in the Twin Cities and as a company in the US to be contributing to the common good. So it deals with our carbon footprint. From the baseline of 2009, we've reduced our carbon footprint by 51%, and it's going to be 60% by 2020. And at some point, we'll work on being carbon neutral. We're very passionate about something we're discussing with the school here, which is to our teen tech centers. We've made a commitment to help train 1 million disadvantaged kids per year and give them access to technology skills. And we do this through our teen tech centers and other partnerships. In the Twin Cities, we have 4, and we're committed to have 8 to really make a difference in the world. Now, serving these constituencies, that's our purpose, and it needs to be done in an aligned and integrated fashion, meaning you cannot have a set of values with customers that's this. It's not aligned with what you do with employees or with the communities and so forth. So it's this alignment that is really critical, and that's what we have to do as leaders. So yes, the purpose of a company is not to make money. It's a much bigger purpose. It's to contribute to the common good, serve the key stakeholders in an aligned, integrated fashion.
Well, thank you for that. But, as you talked about this, several times you mentioned the word turnaround, right?
Yes.
And, turnaround makes me very nervous, because when you hear the word turnaround, it usually means someone coming in, slashing and burning, laying off loads of people. So what's been your leadership philosophy as you've led this turnaround for Best Buy?
So yes, because you can have very noble ideas, and then there's reality, and then you abandon your noble ideas. That would not be appropriate. So when we walk through our turnaround, we try to do it in a purposeful fashion. Let me give you a few examples and illustrations. And I learned that from a client many years ago. In a turnaround, you try to do 4 things to improve the financial performance of the company, but in a specific order. Number 1, grow the revenue, right? Because there's nothing like growing the revenue. That's your first priority. Second priority, if you're going to go after costs, which you have to, go after non-salary expenses. So it's all of the costs in the company that are not related to people. And at most companies, certainly at Best Buy, that's 80% of our cost structure. And the irony, of course, or the sadness is that many times in a turnaround, people start by saying, all right, we're going to lay off 10,000 people. We're going to eliminate 20,000 positions, and then the share price goes up. That's really sad because you have so much opportunity with non-salary expenses. So that's purchasing. It's eliminating waste in the company. As an example, if we, we sell you a product and then you return it, we're happy for you to return it, but there's a lot of value that's disrupted, that's destroyed in that process. So how do we minimize returns? By making sure you get the right product the first time. That's an example of a non-salary expense that is good. Third driver is what we call creative management of benefits. There's many ways you can optimize the cost of benefit, including healthcare costs as an example. And then 4, if 1 + 2 + 3 is not sufficient, then of course you have to look at headcount. But philosophically, you do it as a last resort because the employees, first and foremost, they're more an asset than a liability. And even if you're going to lay off people, so earlier this year, we made the decision to close our small format Best Buy mobile stores. These are mall-based stores. They're small. They're 1,000 square foot. And they made sense when the penetration of smartphones was going up, and it was a way for us to attract new customers. With now smartphone being a much more mature market and the margins having gone down, the economics of mall-based small format stores didn't make any sense. So we decided to close them. But what we did is we tried our best to make sure that we retained every one of the employees that were working in these stores. Why? Because they have years of accumulated experience. They're part of our family. And so redeploying them makes sense. And in a company, you have turnover. Right. And so you can actually reduce the headcount while keeping the people because of this turnover. So these are ways you can do this. And we can talk more, but that's one way to answer your question.
Right. That's really interesting. And I know you've spoken elsewhere about leading based on a set of principles. I think you call it the 5 Bs.
The 5 Bs, yes.
Yeah, okay, so what are your 5 Bs, apart from best and buy?
Yes. Would you like me to give them in alphabetic order, the 5 Bs?
Okay.
So it starts with an idea, which is first a negative idea, which is beware as a leader of the seduction of power, fame, glory, or money. If this is what drives you, you're going to get trouble. And we probably all know people or know of people, white collars, who've gone to jail because they were seduced by power, fame, glory, or money. In contrast, what are the 5 Bs?
Okay.
First one is be a purposeful leader. So what does that mean? That means be clear about your individual purpose. The question of the meaning of our life is the most important question we have to answer as individuals. So as a leader, you have to be clear about what is your purpose in life, and then try to connect it with the purpose of the company, right? If you're not able to connect your individual purpose with the purpose of the company, you're probably working in the wrong place. Or if you're the CEO, then you can change the purpose of the company, which is convenient. But as a leader, understanding the purpose of what drives the individuals working at the company, and working to connect their purpose and have this alignment between their purpose and the purpose of the company is an important principle. The second one is be clear about your role as a leader. Many of us, self-included, grew up, highly educated, and when this happens, you tend to believe that, a key thing that you have to be as a leader is be smarter than anybody else. You're going to be successful because you're really smart. And sometimes people say of somebody, in my home country of France, a big compliment to a CEO he's so brilliant. Well, here's the scoop. IQ is way overrated. And in fact, in business schools
Right.
or in engineering schools, we spend a lot of time learning techniques. How to spell the 4 Ps of marketing, right? Or how to calculate an internal rate of return. Well, guess what? As the CEO of the company, the way I lead is not going to be based on the fact that I may be able to spell the 4 Ps better than anybody else. So your role as a leader is not to be the smartest person in the room. It is to create an environment in which others can be successful. Right. So it completely changes the perspective. There's a great book by my former executive coach, Marshall Goldsmith. What got you here won't get you there. At the beginning of the book, he lists the 20 quirks of successful people. That's his focus. When I started to work with him, I had 13 out of the 20 quirks. And that includes, again, being, trying to be the smartest person, adding too much value. And so it's a completely different perspective. Third B is be clear about who you serve as a leader. So if you believe you're serving yourself or your boss or the CEO of the company, it's okay. You don't need to work here. You can be promoted to a Best Buy customer, which is really cool. Anybody's a Best Buy customer in the room? Yes. If you're not, I'll see you after class. So of course you have to, the way, it's about serving the servants, serving the people on the front line. So whether it's the blue shirt, people in supply chain, people in tech centers, to give them the right tools, the right environment so that they can be successful. The fourth B is be a values-driven leader. Of course, integrity is essential. You cannot fool all of the people all of the time. If you don't have integrity, you're dead in the water. And the fifth B is be an authentic leader. People talk about work-life balance. And work-life balance is really important, but it almost implies that your life is outside of work. I don't know about you, but many of us spend a lot of our life working. And if we cannot live an authentic life, an integrated life at work, if we cannot be ourselves at work, it's going to be really hard to keep the energy going. And by the way, through these 5 Bs, I'm not preaching anybody. I know that if we were going to ask people in the room or you, we would have wonderful. This is more about a way to talk about what's expected of leaders at Best Buy and holding ourselves accountable to try to be the best version of ourselves we can be with these 5 Bs.
Right. I mean, you've also said, in connection with your values, that the drive for perfection, if I don't know, maybe you said it's evil, maybe?
Yes.
Okay, so how do you explain that? Again, all of us are driven to be perfect. So, what's the...
The quest for perfection can be evil.
The quest.
I learned this from a friend of mine who is a monk in a Catholic congregation in France. And we were reflecting on our lives, and he was sharing. So the fallen angel, thought that he could do it on his own. He was a he, I think. Pleasing the crowd. He thought he didn't need anybody else. He could leave God and have his own business without anybody's help. And in contrast, this friend, Father Samuel, was saying, Christ came to save the sinners, came to touch us in our weakness, in our vulnerability. And of course, the implication is, you have to be able to open up and be open about your vulnerabilities. Whether or not you're a Christian, in any human relationship, if you don't open up, if you're not yourself, if you're not open about your vulnerabilities, you're not going to have a relationship. It's hard to love somebody who is perfect. You can admire the perfection, but you're not going to love this perfect. So learning to love your own imperfections and vulnerabilities and learning to love those of others is essential to creating a human environment. If not, so why is it evil? A, because it's coming from the fallen angel, but also if I'm driven by perfection, on my team, even though I may be perfect, on my team, somebody's not going to be perfect. And if somebody's not going to be perfect, he or she's an obstacle to the outcome, and therefore I'm going to hate that person for being an obstacle, as opposed to, building a more human view of things where we're going to work together. And the confusion is between perfection and performance. Of course, we have to perform, right? For our customers, our employees, our vendors, our shareholders, and the community. But in order to create a high-performance team in an environment where people want to work at the place and want to give everything they have, you need to create this environment in which people can be vulnerable. And then you can support each other, because if I say, gee, this is a new problem. How do we solve this? I've never seen that. Does anybody know this problem? Alan Mulally, the CEO of Ford, is also a great thinker around this. He was, one day they had a problem with the production of a car on a production line. And instead of himself, by the way, trying to prove to the head of that division that he could solve this problem better than anybody else, he said, who else can help this person? So being vulnerable and needing help is, I think, is an insight I got from that friend, and that's really stuck with me.
Okay.
And good news is I'm so imperfect that I'm relieved.
I mean, speaking again of vulnerabilities, I think one of the things that so many of the CEOs I meet grapples with all the time is, how do we allow people to bring their whole selves to work? How do we, what do we do about inclusion? What do we do about, so how do you deal with trying to sort of promote a culture of, conscious inclusion, promote a culture of diversity and inclusion at Best Buy? What do you?
And again, this is an area where I've certainly learned and evolved over the years, because the natural tendency of most people, self included, is to surround yourself by people who look like yourself, and that you understand their qualities and you trust them. And of course, that's a big mistake. So at Best Buy, we're on a journey on inclusion and diversity. It starts with inclusion, and it starts with at the individual level. So this is the view that a company, like any organization or university, is a human organization made of individuals. I don't care whether it's 100, 1,000, 100,000, or a million. It's a set of individuals working together more or less effectively in pursuit of a goal. So it's this recognition that it starts with each one of us. It's not about labels first, it's about each one of us. And it's well known that if I feel that I don't belong here, that I don't have a voice, that I'm not welcome, I'm not going to contribute. And also, of course, at the team level, if you have just one set of skills, it's not going to work. If in a company, the employees and the management team don't look like their customers, it's not going to work. Think about a store. We have stores across the country. Think about a store in Florida where none of the employees would speak Spanish or Portuguese, because there are a lot of Brazilian customers. It wouldn't work. Guess what? So diversity of perspectives, a sense of inclusion is critical to make the place a livable place and an effective place. But then you cannot stop here, of course, because we all know there's some systemic issues across a number of dimensions, certainly gender and ethnicity, color, and so forth. And you have to attack them head on, because otherwise, you don't move the needle. So we're committed. I've decided to make this one of my, legacies, is to make a difference from a diversity, in particular gender and people of color, Black, African American in particular, and make a difference in this area. I'm excited about the progress we've made at the top of the company. On our board, we have a majority of women. Yeah. We have.
Woo-hoo!
Out of the last 4 board members we've recruited, 3 are women of color. Last 2 are 2 amazing African-American women, including one former employee from 3M, Cindy Kent, who is just amazing. And so making good progress there. It's easier because it's a small group of people. Good also gender diversity at the top of the company, but frankly, a lot of progress to make when you go in lower levels, and then certainly from an African-American standpoint. I think that why do we want to do this? Because it makes business sense.
Right.
It's the right human thing to do. And also from a society standpoint, if we don't do the level of division, in my other home country, I have 2 homes, right here, the other home country, not better, but the level of division and inequity and injustice is daunting. And if you're a young African-American person, the fear, the lack of hope is something we have to tackle. Okay. Again, you may do this from the head or the heart. Right. From the head, it makes sense. Business is not going to prosper if the country, if society is not, stable and provides opportunity for all. So we have built a comprehensive program to foster greater diversity and inclusion. Starts with building an inclusive workplace. And so we do a variety of things. We have training, we have candid conversations. I attended recently a conversation around mental health. And we had several of the executives open up and say, this is what I've been going through, either myself or in my family. So again, vulnerability is opening up. We've had Manita Stable come in and help us, open up. So workplace inclusion, and then there's training, coaching, mentoring, sponsors for the employees. Now, workforce, you have to recruit differently. And don't say that, it's all, you're going to lower your standards. That would be so far from the truth. The level of talent across all groups is there. You can have an influence with your vendors as well, so being, demanding from your vendors that they are themselves diverse. And then our commitment to community, and again, the work with the teen tech centers and so forth. So we're on a journey where, we're fumbling half the time, but we're going to stick with it.
I appreciate that. And, at the Carlson School, we strongly believe in business as a force for good.
Yes.
And so there's no...
Do you have a campaign going on?
We have a campaign going on. Absolutely. But, the idea is that, one of the best things businesses can do is really, bring economic development to the community. Yes. And one of the things I think you've done very successfully, so I'm going to turn this a little bit, because we've talked a lot about your leadership style, we've talked a lot about, how you've brought this firm forward and how you've, the people, how you've kind of energized your team to sort of come along with you. But I think that I'm going to sort of switch you a bit to a strategy question. Yes. Because, you're a strategist and I'm a strategist, yes. So I'm very interested in your strategy, as you try to renew this firm. And one of the most interesting things about the renew effort that you led was that you turned what was a weakness, which was showrooming, into an area of strength. Could you tell us a little bit about that and what's next for Best Buy? Yes. Now you've done that, and so where does it go next?
Yeah, because all of these discussions, around leadership and values and so forth could be very philosophical, but if it doesn't work, then you say, where are we going? And of course, good thing is that so far so good. It's worked quite well. Share price. I hope everybody's is invested. Still time to invest. But it's these principles that are tied to the strategy that enable the strategy. So the idea. So 6 years ago, one of the reasons why people thought we were going to die is because of this showrooming phenomenon, right? People would come to our stores, talk to our associates, look at the products, and then buy them online because presumably it was cheaper. And then, oh, by the way, you didn't pay the sales tax. Anybody has done that before? So the good news is the sales tax issue has been resolved thanks to a Supreme Court decision last June. But so, of course, we had to address this. So the first thing we did during the turnaround was to decide that our prices were going to be competitive and that we were going to match online prices. And so that killed showrooming and that turned the table. And now our stores are a wonderful asset where you invite you for your holiday shopping. We can take care of your entire list. It's true. Because you're going to see the products, you're going to talk to somebody. We've invested in the proficiency of the associate. But how did we come to the idea? Is the first week I spent on the job, I spent in stores, starting in a store in St. Cloud, Minnesota. I think you guys say St. Cloud.
St. Cloud, that's right. St. Cloud.
It's really St. Cloud, Yeah. And the associates were telling me it's ridiculous. People, come to the store and then we cannot win. Okay. If you think about serving the servants, the frontliners, the blue shirts needed this tool to be able to, because there was a lot of traffic in our stores. Traffic was not the problem, but we need to keep the associates. So simply by listening to the frontliners who needed this tool, and so this was the idea of, yeah, we're going to serve them and give them the tools. We had checked, of course, from a strategy standpoint, that the cost was, was manageable because actually our prices were quite competitive. But this was, from a strategic standpoint, actually a simple choice. Either we would decide to be price competitive and have the risk of, the pricing decision costing you money, or we did not, and then we were sure to die slowly, but we would die over time. So this was an easy decision. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And what's next?
What's next? So the turnaround was about, ensuring that our prices were competitive, investing in the shopping experience online. Our site is great now. We ship as fast as Amazon for free. The app is wonderful. We invested in the shopping experience in the stores, with the vendors. Now you can see all of these wonderful products. The associates we invested in their training, and all of this helped, stabilize the top line, grow the top line. We took $1.5 billion of cost out, so that helped the bottom line as well. So that was the turnaround. So 2 years ago, with the board, we said, all right, we need to declare that the turnaround is over. That was Renew Blue. And what do we want to look like when we grow up? And so that's what we call Best Buy 2020, building the new blue. And it starts with a few simple observations. One, there's more and more technology innovation, right? It's a very exciting time. Technology can do all sorts of wonderful things. At the same time, this innovation can be confusing, overwhelming. What technology should I buy? An OLED TV or an UHD TV or an OLED UHD TV? Should I buy Alexa or Google Home? What is going to work together? How do I keep it going? How do I take full advantage of it? How do I fix it if something doesn't work anymore? A lot of customers need help. And that's how we decided to hone on our purpose, which is to enrich lives through technology by addressing key human needs of entertainment, productivity, communication, security, food preparation, and health. Because we felt that this would allow us to expand the addressable market, which from a strategy standpoint would be check, right, a good thing, and also build something very differentiated, right, because we have a unique set of assets, our site, but our stores, our associates. We go to your home. There's not many people who can do this, so we can build a moat around this. And so we are addressing these needs, and the change at the highest level is to move from the situations where we were selling products through transactions to now providing solutions and building a relationship. So we're going to try to understand, irrespective of what you're looking for, we're going to try to understand what problem are you trying to solve? What are you trying to accomplish? And then we're going to create the solution for you. And then we're going to aspire to building a relationship because, there's so much technology in your home now. We'd like to be your CIO, right? Both your consultant to be there to advise you when you need help. Again, we have this new program called In-Home Advisor, where we'll come to you for free, right? So if you have needs for holiday, and it's a bit more complex than just going to the store, call me. We'll set up an appointment. We'll have somebody come to your home for free. How cool is that?
That's right.
That's an exciting development. And then we'll be the CIO because so the challenge today. Best Buy, we've always provided services, right, with the Geek Squad, which is a good acquisition quite a few years ago, 20 years ago. But it was attached to a single product. But today, everything is working together. So if Netflix is not working tonight, is it because of Netflix, the pipe into the home, the Wi-Fi, the TV, the streaming device? Honey, what is it? And we are honey.
Right, you're honey. I love that.
Because we can deal with all of these brands. Right. And so there's a new offering called Total Tech Support. For $200 per year. We'll support everything you have in your home, irrespective of whether you bought it at Best Buy or not. And you can also gift it to your mother or your younger brother, your sister.
That sounds wonderful.
That's some of the things we're working on. So it's very exciting. We have an amazing team. We're growing the place, and we're trying to create. Best Buy is a company with an amazing history, great DNA. We're trying to make it, what it can be for the next, 10 or 20 years.
Love that. Thank you so much. At this point, I think I'd like to open it up to questions. There are folks with, mics around, so please, yes.
Hi, this is Ravi Bapna. I'm a faculty at the school. So my question follows up on Shree's question. What do you have to do internally to do this transformation, the digital transformation that you talked about? Because you're kind of, moving from selling products to now, selling services, right? And other companies that have tried that, GE, for instance, haven't, I think they had a lot of problems internally. So any thoughts on that, please?
Yes. So the question of change management, so I'll give you phases because there's going to be different approaches, different techniques, depending on the phase you're in. So at the beginning of the turnaround, I'm a bit of a Maoist, if that's okay. This is not illegal anymore, right? So fish rot from the head. So in a turnaround at the beginning, you have to clean the head. And so my approach to change management at the beginning was to change management. And starting, yeah, they pay me a lot to say these things,
Right,
I come up with them. But in the turnaround, at the top of the company, quickly, and you cannot do this too quickly, you have to make sure you have the right team. Then, it was a matter of starting to address our opportunities at the time, which were mainly operational. So the way we changed behaviors, because you had to become much more customer-focused and leaner and so forth. So the way we changed behaviors, was by changing behavior. Yes, I get paid a lot to say these things. What do I mean by this? Sometimes people make it very complicated.
Right.
But if it's a matter of, no, the way we're going to do this turnaround was by becoming incredibly customer-focused, by driving the online business, by empowering the employees of the company and unleashing their power, you change the behavior. So for example, in a management team meeting, let's say the monthly business review, most companies start with looking at financial results. Well, if you really believe that you're leading a human organization, if you believe that there's three imperatives in a business, the people imperative, which is having the right team, rightly organized and with the right tools, then the business imperative, which is having customers, and then the financial imperative, these are the three things you manage, well, start with people. If you start with people and then customers and then finance, you will always have enough time for finance. If you start with finance, you will never have enough time for people. And so just that's a change in behavior. Similarly, if you say that online is a key priority, which it was and still is, well, in business reviews, even though online is not the biggest revenue contributor, stores still higher, you can still start with the online business. And that's a change in behavior, if you will. Or how you decide to promote, who you promote, what are the criteria you use. So the way you change behavior is by changing behaviors. But to your question, which is a more strategic question, as we do this pivot, this is hard. So we're in the middle of this. So a key thing we did, because we'd been talking about making this change, and I felt with the management team that we're permanently dissatisfied with ourselves. So it was not moving fast enough. Because it's hard to run a $42 billion company, in retail, there's something happening every day, right? Every week and so forth. So expecting that the leaders of the business would be able to invent the future was unrealistic. So what we decided to do 3 years ago was to create what we've called a strategic growth office, which was a relatively small unit, maybe 50 people, entirely focused on defining and inventing the future, doing tests, experiments. That's how this in-home advisor program was defined and so forth. You had to do this separate from the core of the business because the patient cannot operate on itself. And then this year, we were very happy. So I like to manage bottlenecks. So the market opportunity is not the bottleneck because there's a lot of growth opportunity for us. The strategy is not the bottleneck because we think the strategy is good. It's the ability to transform that's becoming the bottleneck. Because everything at the company is wired around products and transactions. So what we measure every day is traffic and close rates and transactions, because we are a retailer. Every retailer in the world measures that. If you're focused on relationships, That's the wrong, it's a perfect indicator for the old strategy,
Right.
not for the new strategy. So we've decided that we were not investing enough in the rewiring of the organization. So we've set up a new unit that now incorporates the Strategic Growth Office, but it's called the Strategic Transformation team, that's headed by our wonderful CFO, Corey Barry, amazing leader. She's got the Strategic Growth Office, a transformation team, technology, change management, and her role is to define all of the new systems, the new processes, and allocate capital, because it's a transformation that needs to be orchestrated. And so I think it's doable, but it's significant, and if anything, we had underestimated the magnitude of the change. And so good news in management is that once you realize something, you can address it. And so that's our focus is on aligning everything. So it starts with the skills, the structures, the systems, the incentives, the KPIs. We're doing acquisitions. So in August, we acquired a company based in San Diego called Great Call that's focused on aging seniors and providing technology to help aging seniors stay at home longer and live an independent life. So they have smart devices. We have sensors that with artificial intelligence can help the caregiver find out whether their mom is not hydrating or is not sleeping well and so forth. So we acquired capabilities. So it's a combination of things we're doing to continue to move on our journey. And good news is a year or so after we launched the strategy, the growth has accelerated, and we're quite excited about the momentum, but it's a lot of work.
Wonderful, wonderful. There was a question there.
Yeah. 10 or 15 years ago, Best Buy and Sears were kind of in the same place, heading the same direction. And now you've obviously gone very different directions. I'd kind of like to hear what your thoughts are on the Sears franchise, and what happened there?
What happened at Sears versus us? Well, I can tell you, I'll start with us and then I'll contrast it with my understanding of Sears, because I've never worked at Sears. I think in the case of Best Buy, we went back to the basics of an obsession about the customer and the employees, and building the right tools and processes to make sure customers would be happy, not looking at the past, but looking at the future. So, for example, when we worked on the strategy, we didn't develop the strategy thinking, gee, we are a brick and mortar retailer. What would be the right strategy for a brick and mortar retailer? Right. We didn't start with that. We started with what our customer needs and opportunities in the market. And some of the customer needs will, in particular, some of the technology services for the aging population, we're working through the payers, meaning Medicare Advantage providers, because that's the right way to get to the customer as opposed to the stores. We don't care. So it's this obsession about the customer, the employees, and looking ahead at the future. I think in the case of Sears, what it looks like from the outside is that I don't know, they did not invest in the customer. I mean, anybody who's been at Sears stores, it's been sad. The CEO, very smart guy, but he lived in Florida. I know many of us from Minnesota like to move to Florida, but usually you do it after you're no longer a CEO of a company. And so the headquarters of Sears was in Chicago. He never showed up at headquarters. My view is that showing up is 80% of success, right? And that you cannot, so General Patton, one of the greatest generals in the history of this country, said you cannot push a noodle, you have to pull a noodle. I'm not saying that Best Buy or Sears are noodles, but you know what I'm saying, you need to be on the front line, you need to be visible, you need to be in the trenches with the teams, the employees, and so forth. So I don't know what went through his head. And maybe, by the way, this may be one of the most sophisticated, elaborate, and financially effective engineering he's ever done, because he's on the two sides of this transaction. He's a creditor. He's done some very sophisticated stuff that don't impact the customers, but may possibly impact him positively. I don't know. But it's such a sad story. I think it was in the 70s, or 60s or 70s. Sears Roebuck was one of the top 10 market cap in the country.
Right.
So it's a reminder that companies do die, and that if you're not obsessed by keeping it going, you can die relatively quickly.
I think we probably have time for one more question. So, right up there.
In today's Twin Cities Business Monthly that were handed out, they're talking about companies who move into new office headquarters to attract new staff members. There was a time at Best Buy, and I don't remember if you were there then or here at Carlson, whereby they built the new headquarters building, and all of a sudden they moved in there and had 4,500 people to 5,000 people laid off. What did Best Buy really learn from that? I think it's more of an operations area than anything else.
I had a bit of hard time. So I think you're referring to the time the company established its headquarters in Richfield, a beautiful campus. And I think you said that subsequent to that, then what happened?
I think maybe a lot of people were laid off right then. That
You
was
had,
maybe before the time.
right after everybody moved in out there, you had between 4,500 and 5,000 people laid off.
Okay.
And it's more of an operational thing than anything else, I think. I once knew the HR director out there, and she got cut back out of that too. And so I'm just wondering what Best Buy really learned from that.
Yeah, so I was not at the company at the time, but there does seem to be a correlation between when companies spend a lot of time on designing their new headquarters and what happens afterwards. And in the case of I don't know, but yes, it can be a loss. It can signify a loss of focus,
Right.
and so forth. Having said that, you just made me think about one thing. I know a company that's very focused on building 2 new headquarters in the U.S. We'll see what happens. We'll see.
Interesting. That's right. And as far as you're concerned, more power to them to let them build more headquarters, right?
Exactly, yes.
Anyhow, thank you so much, Hubert. This
you,
was
Sri.
so wonderful.
you.
And, you know, I just want to say that speaking of showing up, I've had so many sightings of Hubert at local Best Buy stores. I can't tell you. I mean, Richfield, Ridgedale, Bloomington. So it's just amazing how much you've been involved in actually understanding the customer experience, the user experience at the front line. And I think that's clearly showing in the results that you're seeing now for Best Buy. So thank you so much for doing this. And for all of you, I hope you've all done your civic duty or plan to do it today. And would love to see you again next month. We have Scott Wine of Polaris speaking, and we would love to have all of you back. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. Very nice. Thank you.